What's up, folks? Welcome to the Couch Connect. I am your host, Joab, and today I'm here with Steffan. How is it going, Steffan?
It's going amazing.
Nice to hang out and chat with you a little bit on this couch.
Nice to be here.
I know you're a little bit into music and stuff like that. What's your stage name? Your music stage name?
Keon, short for Keon Gozi.
Kiongozi. Where does Kiongozi come from?
It comes from the Swahili word leader, to lead, one who
Okay.
leads.
Do you consider yourself a leader?
I aim to be, yes, I consider myself to be a
Okay.
leader.
Were you ever a leader in, like, I don't know, elementary school, high school, class president, or anything like that?
Great question. More like the first to put the hands up when it comes to questions leading that way in terms of, if you're even gonna be wrong strong.
Okay. So you were one of those kids in class who would always have questions for the teacher or who always wanted to answer questions.
Yes, ask and answer, yeah.
Okay. Is there a time when yeah, I don't know, folks got angry and mad at you and considered you to be, this guy was trying too hard or too much?
In school it was more with colleagues or peers,
Okay.
because there's times when being the smartest or the brightest or the most hardworking might not be to your advantage in
Okay.
terms of how you relate to your peers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's great. And then, so how did
Yeah.
that switch on, how did then that lead into you being interested in music and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think music has always been a passion. It's always been intrinsic, even like early on. So
Mm-hmm.
growing up, Seventh Adventist, you sort of have Adventure Club, Pathfinder Club, and one of the key things there is keeping a song in your heart, like one of
Mm-hmm.
the mottos or the key fundamentals. And so that aspect of being attuned to music, in terms of as a way to uplift your mood or keep spirits high, that
Mm-hmm.
has always been intrinsic. And it's been more of as I age, finding the tools or mechanisms to actually apply that. So whether that is through instruments or learning that through singing, vocal, and
Mm-hmm.
making it come to life. Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of saying that there was I don't know, a religious aspect that ended up connecting you into being interested in music and singing and stuff like that. And so do you do vocals or play instruments, or what do you do?
I do play instruments, yeah. So I mean, growing up too is we were put into one of our schools. We were in band. So in
Mm-hmm.
band, I used to play. It's almost like a small tuba. It's called the euphonium or the baritone bass clef. It's a little small tuba. So that was my part in band. But then I was always interested in the piano. So and for that, I ended up getting that and teaching myself throughout high school. That was another aspect.
Oh, so you self-taught piano.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, interesting, man. I mean, I've known those guys who've been trying to self-teach piano, and I learned to play piano. I guess I was in like eighth grade, or maybe sorry, fourth grade, or between fourth grade and eighth grade. That's when I started playing, and I guess I didn't learn very well. So I
Mm-hmm.
still play the piano,
Yes.
but I have this weird playing style, and I don't know, man. I probably need to get my act together. Yeah, I did the same with guitar, and
Yeah.
I couldn't read music, but
Oh.
I could understand the chords, and then I would play the
Yes.
chords. I would strum
Yeah.
the chords. But then I was like, man, this is a very mediocre way to play. And
Mm-hmm.
so I actually enrolled in
In
classes,
classes,
in guitar
yes.
classes. Yeah, and I've been taking those. I actually have a concert coming up soon in a couple of weeks.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
amen. Yeah.
yeah, with my guitar teacher, and so he's gonna be playing together with me in the concert.
See, guitar is one of those instruments I could never learn or master just because I don't understand the fingerings or how it works logically. Whereas when you look at the piano, it's all laid out,
Yeah.
right? So in that way, I find and I appreciate those who play guitars because you can almost be more expressive with guitars because you can almost slide into certain notes. Or if
Mm-hmm.
you have an electric guitar, you can almost slide into certain notes.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's a nice way, like you said, it's a nice way to express yourself. And so, so you didn't take any piano classes, all you were all
Actually,
everything you
I'm
self-taught.
lying.
Mm-hmm.
I did. That was early on. Mom and dad, with them, especially with the love of music being in the
Mm-hmm.
family too.
Yeah.
Mom, especially growing up, was putting us into piano conservatory. So that
Mm-hmm.
was the older brother, me, and the youngest. So at the time, it was lessons and it was classical teachings like almost like a structured way.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, those got too costly. So, but that fundamental was there, and that spark had been ignited. So now it was almost like, okay, I owe myself, like and owe it to my parents to almost take this to where I think I can.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
so all your siblings are also like play instruments and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 So the
Yeah.
whole family.
Damn, you guys might be very musical. So do you guys? I don't know. Do you guys have like a I don't know a family band or something like that? You know,
that
like
that would have been the dream. Yes.
okay, like once
Yeah.
every I don't know once
Uh,
every week or once every year, you
yeah.
guys like throw a big party where
Get
you
together and just
okay and just play and I don't
yeah.
know. Would you say that
Yes.
playing piano is your hobby then?
Yes, it's a hobby, and also it's almost like because it's more of creative music is more on the creative side, and my day to day involves very analytical, very numbers tasks, very you're almost left brain. So it's like to get
Mm-hmm.
a chance to use your creative side as well gives you that space to almost, you know, separate yourself from the stresses of the world of being too analytical, of being so decision making. Because in music, it's almost because of its creativity, there's nothing wrong as long as it's pure expression and the truth of it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wish I would, have that a similar experience to what you have because I honestly, the reason why I've been taking guitar classes is because I also think that my day involves numbers a lot. My day to day
Yes.
involves a lot of numbers,
Yeah.
and I also want to get the left side of my brain working, like you say, and so maybe guitar is gonna be that release for me, and maybe how I use it, I don't know, and
Mm-hmm.
tell me a bit more of your musical journey. So after the piano, did you get
Mm-hmm.
into anything else, or that was just it?
Yeah, so after learning piano, then came music production, which was later in high school. So that was around grade 10, grade 11 high school, where it was from seeing my older brother and his friends being on a laptop and somehow being able to create music. So off of software, it's called a digital audio workstation. So that's
A
when
DAW.
a DAW, yes. So that's when I learned was FL Studio was one of the first DAWs I played around with.
F4 Studios
FL Studio, yeah.
or FL? Oh yeah, I think I've seen
Yeah,
FL
Fruity
too. Yeah,
Loops.
yeah, Fruit Loops. I
That
think
is what,
everybody,
yeah,
everybody,
everyone starts off Fruity Loops. Yes, everyone.
yeah,
Um,
every rapper. I think. I mean,
every rapper,
anybody who
yes,
considers themselves a rapper probably start with that.
yes,
Hmm.
because yeah. So Fruity Loops. Then I got for myself familiarized, and what I realized is with the production aspect, you now can get to the nitty gritty of the music, which is at the baseline of music. It's sound waves going through, and its frequencies being altered in certain ways to make us perceive it as the sound. So when you actually get down into production, you realize it's audio engineering at its base, and that if you can understand music on that granular level, it allows you to be almost more expressive with your creativity in that you can create any type of music now
Hmm.
to fit any genre or any sort of artist or expression. And that's the aspect I got into later in high school and then continued it forward once I went on to university where I would do it as a hobby now while I'm playing piano, but I'd also produce and make things for myself and then sometimes get those tracks sent out to various artists and then they go out and sing. And I'm now, on a music producer on the back end who's just, like almost a back end partner to the
Okay.
artist, right? Because
Yeah.
with every piece of music that exists, you need two components. You
Hmm.
need the instruments, the bass line, the underlying, I could call it like meat and potatoes, So that's the instrumental, and then from there you might have the extra sauces on top. Then that's like the melody, the artist, the words that are used, and that adds on top. So you kind of need both to have an effective, sort of song. Yeah,
And so you become the guy who creates the meat and potatoes, or who brings the meat and potatoes into the
exactly.
song.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Is there any
Uh huh.
acts out there that you probably want to talk about, if at all? There's no like if there's no NDA signed.
Most of those like they're on Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's something that I didn't expect it to turn into something like a hobby to then turn into, oh, this can actually bring in a little bit of side income as
Mm-hmm.
well. Once you get in the craft and do it for so long, because I would say it took me probably about 7-8 years before I started seeing any revenue that was like greater than like $100 a month
Yeah, I
from
see.
music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so for a very long time, then you would, I guess, helping out your friends or doing it for free and stuff
Yes.
like that. And
Yes.
what they make, do you feel like they were like, making a lot of money out of you, and then you just, they wouldn't reciprocate the same to you?
Early on, yes, that
Mm-hmm.
was when I was 17. I had a chance to go work with the production collective, and at that time I didn't know how to read contracts,
Yeah.
and the importance of reading contracts, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't realize that even though I'd be making tracks, they weren't getting any revenue brought back, even though they had been placed with artists. So that's another aspect where, when you have a manager who's older than you and maybe you're not as aware of how the music industry works, you can be taken advantage of,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's where, fast forward from that, once I went off to university and I was actually away from all the music scene, I was able to go off and build off on my own and then find the own artists or people I want to connect with and just do one-on-one. And then you're more selective,
Yeah.
right? Because then that's the beautiful thing of being sort of an instrumentalist or a music producer, where you're making the songs, is that you don't need to be up there on stage singing and doing
Mm-hmm.
all that.
Yeah.
You can have them do that. You go to sleep and your work is done.
It's very impressive what you've done. Then, I mean, I've listened to your music, as Keon, and I've also listened to you playing the piano. You don't play the piano as Keon, though.
No, I'm just me, Steffan. Yes.
Okay, so I've listened to Stefan play the piano and
Yes.
Keon's production. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Keon produced music, and it sounds very professional, very authentic, very original. And what I'm getting from all this is that you never trained for this professionally. It's something that you kept building off of
Mm-hmm.
your interests and stuff like that. And then this brings in the aspect of education. Then sometimes I feel like it is very
Mm-hmm.
possible that there are parents or individuals who would encourage,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in a forceful way,
Yes.
their children to go to school and get an education um, um, that is not necessarily of their interest.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think education is one of the greatest things that I think my parents, made it almost like a right, that to them it's like, if it's the one thing we can arm you with to be successful in this life, is education. Because once you are armed with that knowledge, no one can take it away from you, right? So from that perspective, I feel like the whole world needs education.
Okay.
What type of education? That is where that could be up for debate. But
Hmm.
everyone needs education,
Okay.
right? So I think that's my take on education. And one of the baselines that I would agree is fundamental in this day and age is also like financial literacy, I
Hmm.
think. So that's why even later on in university studying, financial modeling, that in of itself was from growing up and seeing that, oh, the more you understand how numbers and how the things that come from numbers work, money, for example, that puts you in a position to not also be taken advantage of because of lack of knowledge, right? So financial literacy is a baseline of education. I would say also like history, understanding where you came from, so you can understand why you're here and where you're going, right? So there's certain components where I feel like if you have a good grasp of certain things in education, you're set up to almost pivot and do what you want later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't get to see a lot of that though in training. I mean, I've been a student for a very long time. I guess most of my life I've been a student.
Mm-hmm.
Going through elementary school, high school, my undergrad, grad school, PhD, whatever. And in all of these many years of education, I don't think that I have been. I mean, I didn't study economics or
Mm-hmm.
business per se, but in a classroom, I have never been taught anything that would equate to financial literacy. And one of the things I do now is I
Mm-hmm.
actually teach my students financial literacy. I mean, I teach innovation and
Yes.
engineering stuff.
Yeah.
But off of the side, I'll dedicate one of the lectures to teach financial literacy, which
Mm-hmm.
is, I guess, it's not part of my course outline,
Yeah.
but I just put it in there and make it relevant, of course, the course content.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think is wrong with our education system then, that we don't get, people exposed to financial literacy? Simple things like taxation and how your tax works, and interest and compounding
Hmm.
interest, and credit cards and loans.
Yeah. I mean, this might be a hot take, but um, I don't think it is in the best interest of the system
Mm-hmm.
to have those who the system needs people to be dependent on the system. Like, it's not in the best interest of those who control the system to have people be financially literate. It's better for you to get into debt and owe
Okay.
me as the bank billions of dollars in interest
Mm-hmm.
because it's my business. I am in the business of lending money out and making sure people pay me back on time, right?
Yeah.
So then if that's the case, why would I, teach people how to save, how to budget, how to do these things? And so in a certain sense, um, like even going back to when I went to university and not understanding the full scope of student loans, even to the point that they're unforgivable and that even if you don't pay it off, it can pass on to your next of kin.
Mm-hmm.
Things like this that weren't made aware to me because also finances in at least North American culture can be a sensitive topic to some people.
Mm-hmm.
Where and one of the key things my accounting professor in university, he told me that his goal in his financial literacy course was to get everyone comfortable talking about how much they make.
Mm-hmm.
So as in, this is something I like normalizing even in my day to day. As in, let's talk about how much we make. If I'm making $20,000 a year, don't be ashamed. Yeah. So I would say that because finance is a sensitive topic.
I guess people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Why? Right? Because to some people it can be embarrassing how much they make, or it can be even embarrassing if they admit like I've got a spending problem. Why would I admit that I'm struggling and I can't stop tapping the credit card, or I can't, because the thing with also I've learned with personal finances that I would say it's 20% knowledge and 80% behavior. So you can learn all the tips, tricks on how to save, budget, be financially literate.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you don't have the prudence and the actual behavioral, strength and will to control yourself, you can't execute anything. The financial discipline to be like, okay, I'm gonna stick to a budget, or I'm only gonna spend this much. So yeah.
So what do you go to school for then?
So yeah, I went to school. I did a bachelor's of sciences in financial modeling.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was at the University of Western Ontario.
And I think we've talked about this before. Was this always what you wanted to do before?
Oh
Okay.
no. In most African cultures, parents either want you to be doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I feel like those are esteemed professions, that have a stability, security, status, all the S's. So
So what are these S's? Stability?
security and status.
Okay.
I always wanted to be a doctor, and specifically, I want to be a neurosurgeon. Like prior to going to university, I had been in biology, loved biology. I loved watching Dr. Ben Carson's his surgeries, or and read his books. At the time, that was like my inspiration, being a neurosurgeon. Fast forward to getting into first year of university, and getting slapped in the face every morning, realizing that this is not maybe what I signed up for. And one of the key things that made me realize that was one night, it's almost 3, 4 a.m. And I go out to, the lounge to heat up food because I was up at that time just, like watching YouTube videos, not being productive. I go to the lounge and I see a group of, three students all huddled studying the biology textbook at 3, 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I freak out because we're all on the medical sciences floor.
Mm-hmm.
So what test do we have that I don't know? What is there that I'm like, I pause everything. I'm like, tell me, like, why are you guys studying? They're like, oh no, like this is just for fun. We're just getting ahead. I'm like, that shocked me. I'm like, you're up at 3, 4 a.m. getting ahead, and me, I hadn't even
You hadn't even caught up.
I hadn't even caught up,
professor.
and people were getting ahead.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, let me just pause for a second and look at what am I doing at 3, 4 a.m. And I was like, okay, I'm researching business. I'm researching stocks. I'm trying to understand how to change my financial situation was all I was obsessed about.
Mm-hmm.
Because growing up, not really having a lot of money, you're like, I want to be in a position where money isn't an issue. That financial freedom where you can do what you want, when you want to do it, with whomever you want to do it with, at any point in time. That itself I hadn't fully experienced, and I'd always wondered why. I'm like, so one point it hit me, it's like, we don't need a doctor in the family, we need a financial doctor. So just a different type of doctor.
Yeah.
And when that hit me, that's when I was like, okay, I now owe it to myself to execute. And so second year is when I shifted out of my program, and then pretty much had to take a whole extra year of credits to make it back up. But fast forward till now, I don't regret it.
Yeah. Interesting. And then you went ahead to study financial modeling.
Yes. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. And so what is financial modeling again?
Financial modeling is a derivative of actuarial science. It is using mathematical statistics to either predict various returns of investments or to hedge your risk on various investments. So
Mm-hmm.
it's utilizing math to predict the future in finance.
Okay. Did you have a particular interest that and it, brought you into financial modeling, or how was that process like?
Yeah, so the math. So I love math from my dad, as in he was a math teacher back home. So mathematics, he likes to say sweet maths, and the thing with numbers is that they don't lie. People may lie, people lie, but numbers 1 plus 1 equals 2. So there's certain aspect of when I was looking at, should I go into business school or should I go into this? I was like, okay, in business school you're taught sales, you're taught the soft skills, but once you learn the hard skills of doing hard math, that can't be taken away from you in any context. So it was a mathematical component. Then in math you have statistics, which is probabilities and predicting to what extent this can happen. So you see it in insurance, where mortality tables and things like that are used to predict, life insurance or even car insurance, your premiums that we
Mm-hmm.
all pay.
Yep.
So I was curious in terms of how math is implemented in that field, and then I found out that there's a financial component where you can implement the same actual science and mathematical concepts in finance. And that's where you get people who so in my field, people go on to get their chartered financial analyst designation and then go on to either become hedge fund managers. So that's where you're betting against the markets, or sometimes they go into creating financial derivatives. So the people who caused the 2008 financial crash, most of them studied or didn't study financial modeling properly
Okay.
when they were creating the securities like collateralized debt obligations back in 2008.
So you're probably one of those people. I mean, you
I
probably
would
would have
have
been
been if I was
one
there
of those
back
people.
then.
Okay. We were like the history probably wouldn't write you up for that. So when you're in college, can you tell me what that experience was like for you living in college over the 4 years, 5 years? How long do you go to college for?
It was five.
5 years.
Five
So
years.
the one year that you wanted to go
Yeah.
to become a doctor, and then the 4 years that you ended up
Yes.
in financial modeling. Okay. So how's that experience like for you? Is it something you always look back to? How did that train you into making you who you are
Mm-hmm.
now?
Yeah, no, it's very important. As in, first of all, first year of university, you're outside of your parents, so it's the first time you're actually an adult. No one's waking you up to go to class.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying for all these classes out of pocket. So I
Yeah.
sat down one time and I knew every class that I missed, how much it actually was costing me per class, because I'm that
Mm-hmm.
kind of person.
Yeah.
That aspect of first year when you're gaining your independence is a lot of growing,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't have routines built in where you wake up on time or can manage yourself or whatever, you can easily, people even call, I think it's the freshman 15 or the freshman
Mm-hmm.
20, like where you lose yourself gaining 15-20 pounds because you're just yeah,
You have nothing to do.
yeah, you have nothing to do. Your first time being freedom, you're like
Yeah.
free,
Free at last.
free at last, right? But then once you get into it and realize that ultimately you're here to not only get the knowledge, but the knowledge can be gotten anywhere. We live in the information age. The internet
Mhm.
is accessible. You can go on YouTube and learn the exact same things that I
Mhm.
overpaid, paid, a decent amount of chunk to download into my brain. But the connections and the people you meet, that's where I would say I got my true value in that. Like, the friends that I established throughout university are the ones where, even fast forward today, we're now working together either in, business ventures, or like we've collaborated on things. And so it's really the people that you get out that is worth, the experience too.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have like great connections to all these friends?
Not all. Like, so
Mhm.
yeah, because that's it. It's almost like in the same way when people graduate high school and go to university, all your friends get scattered because everyone has their own ambitions, all that. In the same way as after university, people go on to then start their lives. Like, we're now in the real world. Now I gotta figure out
Yeah.
how to make this degree into income, and pay off bills and get into the working life. And so it's like connection at that point. Now it's on effort or off of rapport. Where, as in, if maybe this guy in university, I knew he helped me out. He had a good heart, as in the program I'm in, it's specifically designed to make you fail. It's specifically designed to test the limits of your knowledge.
Okay.
And it's specifically designed for you to see horrible marks and somehow be okay with it.
Okay.
So in that, like, the the average in my program I think was a 60%.
Wow.
So yeah, it was 60. Yeah, 61% was like the department average, the whole department, right?
Like first year to fourth year.
The department
Yeah.
average. So I mean, and like looking back, you realize internally that they also kind of set this because they've been running these programs for some time, that they have data to be like, oh wow, this
Mm-hmm.
is what we can expect because the knowledge is tough.
Yeah.
But what you're taught in going through certain things where you hit your head and you're like, I got to points where I found the limits of my mind. I can't understand stochastic calculus and how you can have something that is a random process, but if you if you have time, go to infinity, it's now a predictable process, or so certain things like that where to wrap your mind around requires efforts. And sometimes if you can't, you need someone else who maybe their mind understand it very differently. So I met a lot of very highly intelligent people in university, and I got to appreciate and be humbled to realize that university experience is also made to humble you, to realize that knowledge is so great and it's always increasing. The knowledge of man is still increasing. And so the fraction you know is actually so little. And so that humbles you to realize that I need other people to really get through, take all these components together. In areas where I'm weak, someone else is strong, and vice versa. So in university, it was like there were some courses where I was amazing in corporate finance. For some reason, my mind understands that. But for some reason, I can't, understand some advanced statistics. It's just too complex for me. But I had another friend who had the reverse problem. So that's where, okay, let's team up. We're now best friends. Yeah. The course I'm bad at, you come and you tutor me, and vice versa, and we get through this together. And that collaboration of getting through those tough problems is what you realize when you go out into the workforce. That's what they're training, is that we're all solving problems. Sometimes it's for a business, sometimes it's for some larger purpose. But it's like you need that collaboration of people to get it done.
You just talked about something that I found interesting. Sometime I was watching a podcast with Jeff Bezos, and he talks about how he ended up in computer science,
Mm-hmm.
and you're connecting that with you ended up in financial modeling, and the fact that you made all these great connections, and you realize that you had people who had something different from what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I also teach my students that whenever you're running a business, you need an opposite force. If you're very good in something, find someone who's good in something else.
Yeah.
Don't find someone who's just as good as you. But anyway, so Jeff Bezos in this podcast says that he wanted to be a theoretical physicist, growing up, and that's what he was working towards, and while he was in school. But then one morning he has a problem that he can't solve, and he works on this problem, keeps trying to work on this problem with his friend. It's a mathematical problem, and they can't solve it. So they end up going to this student, the international student from Pakistan, who I've forgotten the name of the student, but I think this student was extremely smart.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at the problem and they told him that the answer is cos.
Wow.
And what do you mean? Yeah, I mean, when you work it down, the end is going to be a cosine function. And so he told him, give me a minute. And they gave him a piece of paper and he had a pen, and he worked on that piece of paper for about maybe 5 minutes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was right there, cosine. And that in that moment, Jeff Bezos realized that this was not his
strength.
This was not his strength.
Yeah.
And that's how he ended up in computer science.
Yes.
I mean, I probably butchered the story. He tells it better. He does tell it better. You say that you made all these great connections with people who have opposite strengths. Strengths that are different from the kind of strength that you have. And so then, how did you turn all this knowledge then into the many businesses that you run or that you've run over the couple of years that you've been around?
Yeah, through sheer failure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of failure.
Okay, tell me about your failed businesses before we talk about the success.
Sure. I mean, one of the if I even take it back, one of the first little businesses I would say was delivering newspapers. That was because that was the only job at the time that would hire you if you're under 15. So in the era I was at, I was like, okay, let me see if I can take on this job. And you know that on every door, for every day, you're supposed to get $2 per house. So, if you have 10 houses, you go there, you're supposed to go there 3 days. That's 3 times 3, that's $90, right? So I was like, okay, there's money to be made here. So delivering newspapers, and that's where I got my younger brother at the time to go help deliver, and I would manage in that. I would collect and assort them, or. So delivering newspapers was the first failed business in that you realize in that business it was optional for clients to pay. So any business where it's optional for your clients to pay, don't be in that business. Whereas it's my choice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
So what does it mean it was optional? Does it mean that they could get the newspaper for free and not have to pay?
exactly.
Okay.
So me
So you and your brother there, you're running the
Yes.
business, and your brother is delivering the newspapers, and you're
Yes.
managing and you're sorting out the newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
I expect $90 at the end of the week. It is. Yeah, and
Sometimes you'd maybe go on collection and maybe get $40, $50, and then you
Yeah.
know you have to split that with your partner. That's now $25.
yeah,
And now you're doing the cost of your time after school and everything. You're realizing, boy, I
yeah,
am earning less than the minimum wage is even where it would be.
yeah. You're earning what you earn minimum wage in
Yes.
2 hours. I guess at that point,
Yeah,
3 hours.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's like half minimum wage when you So that aspect is like it teaches you hustle. So from there, I didn't really do any businesses until first year of university, where I got into the painting and contracting business. So that was through a company called Student Works Painting, and in that business, that was in my first year of being a medical science student. I was convinced that if I can run a business in the summer, I can make enough where I'll pay for my med school, because I was ambitious, and that's how they sold it off too. And but that business, uh, second semester of university, I was soliciting for contracts. So when it's dead winter, it's snow, I'm door knocking, being, hey, do you want your house painted? I'm booking clients for the summer. I'm going to get filled up very quickly, so you have to book
Today.
right. Let me know what you need.
Yeah.
And so somehow in the preseason, I booked $20,000 worth of work, which is $20,000 worth of painting contracts is a lot of money for a 17, 18-year-old, right? So, and then it came to the summer, and I was able to book another 20,000. So I was able to have $40,000 of revenue in that business. But then now doing the work, actually going through and painting these properties that I signed up for, that was a whole other beast. So I learned how to sales. So there's sales, but then there's operations, in that you actually also now got to produce the work.
Yeah.
So that business taught me a lot in terms of managing. It was the first business where I had like 3-4 employees to manage and send them out for different work. But that ended because of profitability. The cost of running it was not worth it. At the revenue I was bringing, it was not worthwhile. You might as well go work a job for the effort and everything and the mental stress you take on and being a business owner, and the liability ends up with you as the boss. If paint has been spilled accidentally, it's my fault. I'll take on the loss. So there are projects whereas in you budgeted and it looked profitable when you went and secured the contract, but then when you're executing and you go over budget, now that's eating into your profits.
Yeah.
And now you're like, whoa, now I'm paying out of pocket to the client just to finish.
Yeah.
So things like that taught me crucial lessons in business in terms of accountability, in that you take responsibilities for your L's, like your failures, and you turn those into lessons. And then you try to create systems that mitigate against those. So from painting, that is when I then got into real estate. And that was in 2019 of May.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from that business, the real estate business, is the one that I would say is now successful, but has gone through its own myriad of mini failures to now become what it is.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So in 2019, you are graduated, I guess.
I am second last year from
Or
graduating.
second last year from graduating.
Mhm.
So how does a second last year from graduating, so third year student, run a business that is considered, probably one of the most difficult businesses in the world to run, that needs a lot of seasoned experience, that probably needs a lot of capital to run?
So in May of 2019, there was a conference. It's called OREC. It happens every year in Ontario, where the province we're in. In OREC, initially I thought it was a Dragon's Den type of conference where you go if you have a business idea, people just throw money at you,
Yeah.
and you get investors, because it was like for investors. It was an
Yeah.
investors conference. I was like, well, okay. And prior to that, I'd always hear, your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. So I'm like, I have zero net worth. So let me just improve my network until it matches the network I want.
Yeah.
So me and my business partner at the time, or he was soon to be my business partner. We go to this conference, and it's a real estate investing conference, and it was one of the first times in 2019 where I'd seen a room of, you know, so many people under 30 years old and all fully retired from real estate. And it felt like I'd stumbled onto like a place I wasn't supposed to be, because that conference was essentially held by people who I ended up working with later, like Jeff Weibo and Matt McKeever, and it was investors going up and showcasing their experience of how I started in real estate with no money. This is how I did it. This is how you can do it. Fast forward 4 years, 5 years. This is my portfolio. This is how I'm making now, and this is how I'm financially retired. And that I've replaced the income that I would have gone and worked for with my real estate portfolio. So the first things that happened at that conference was I met my mentor, and that's what changed things. So to answer your question, it was having a mentor is the first thing that eased my mind in jumping into such an industry where it is very complex. It has so many moving parts, and it requires a lot of effort to sustain in terms of capital. So my mentor at the time, Corey, he was
So, and you met this mentor at the conference.
yes, I met him at the
Okay.
conference. Yeah. So I met him at the conference, and turns out he had remembered me from the painting business. So this is
Okay.
also how this story kind of is kind of God given, in that I hadn't seen him for years, and he sees me at this conference. He's like, Steffan, you're thinking about, you're in real estate? I didn't know you were thinking about real estate. I'm like, no, Corey, like it's my first time here. I'm here to learn, what's going on. And at this time, I hadn't known that he'd transitioned into real estate. And at this point, he'd retired himself just by real estate. And he was now coaching other people to do it. But he's like, I'm going to coach you for a fee of $20,000,
Mm-hmm.
which for a student in the second last year of university, that
Yeah.
can be your everything.
Yeah.
So at that point, after that conference, I'm digesting that night. I'm like, I have to make a decision. I've got this opportunity. This man is saying, hey, you give me your life savings right now, and in 1 year, I guarantee you that somehow, some way, you're going to have your first property. I'm like, okay, let's take that risk. So I took that risk, and I got my business partner at the time to aid with the cost. And from there, we started our coaching program with him. 3 months into the program, September of 2019, he helped us secure our first investment property in London. That was a student rental. And the unique thing about that one was it was purchased through a private mortgage. So as a student in my second last year of university, I didn't need to go qualify with the bank as most people would have.
Yeah.
And the other thing about this property was that the owner had owned it free and clear. So he could have given me a private mortgage, and we work out the payments. And as long as it makes sense and he gets paid, the property works for me. So that's how I got my first property. And it's very rare, but it is possible. And that's now what I work on to help other people find these types of deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you walk me through what that process is like? So how do you find these deals, and what would make me want to get into this kind of deal? Like, especially with the guy who, you got into your first deal with.
Yeah. So, like, as in, what would make someone want to get into like giving you a private mortgage is essentially if they already own their property free and clear.
Okay.
So, if the person selling you the property has no mortgage on it, so that means they own it free and clear. So that means, if they were to sell, they'd be getting their whole amount of their price in cash. So you, as a potential buyer, if you don't have the full amount, you can maybe go negotiate with them and be like, hey, instead of me going to a bank and, going through that whole approval process, what if you act like the bank? Since you own your property, I give you the down payment, you write me a mortgage, and I pay you that mortgage off in payments that we agree. So that's essentially what we're able to negotiate. On that first house, at a price of 230,000, I had to put 7% down, which is around 18,000. And then from there, 93% of that price, so 93% of 230,000, is what the mortgage that the seller gave to me. So now I would pay him as if he was the bank. And the benefit for him is now he doesn't have the problem of having a house. He's now just has a loan, and he's just collecting payments. So he now doesn't have to worry about fixing a toilet, painting, if the roof goes. So you've just now taken off a liability for him. Second thing is taxes. Now, instead of paying capital gains tax on the whole amount, he only pays taxes on the down payment you give him, and that allows him to defer taxes. So it's a tax deferment strategy.
And
Um,
so the monthly payments that you pay him, you don't have he doesn't have to pay tax on those.
no,
Oh, interesting.
right? Like as in it's a mortgage, and I'm giving that seller interest, so it's interest income.
Okay.
So that would be interest income that would be at a different rate, right? So, and that is still more beneficial than him having sold the house fully. And then, God forbid, if me as the person buying it, I ever miss a mortgage payment,
Mm-hmm.
like any bank, they can foreclose on the property and now take it back. But typically, that's after you've owned it, you've already done the improvement. So it's not going to be at the value
Mm-hmm.
that you initially got it for.
Yeah.
So because of that, like that situation was unique in that that person had owned this property and almost forgot that they owned it. They
Mm-hmm.
were that wealthy in real estate that that this was negligible. This was
Yeah.
just a write off, but to me this was everything. So finding people like that, they do exist. You typically find that they're older because you need time to be able to pay off a mortgage. So they're well over in their 60s, 65, and most of the time they would prefer a month to month payment coming in to balance their income instead of a lump sum of cash, right? So if you're in your retirement, your real estate almost acts as old age insurance, and that it can pay you monthly if you set it up correctly. Yeah.
This mortgage is agreed to for a period of, let's say, 30 years or 25 years, like we see in
Yeah.
agreements with
So
banks.
yeah, you can because it's private. You agree with the person giving you the mortgage, whatever terms that are suitable for you. So at that time, we negotiated it. It was a 5% interest rate. It was amortized over 25 years, principal plus interest payments. So they're blended payments. And we had a condition there that the first 3 months were principal only. So the first 3 months were only $400 a month. And then on there, the payment was 1,300 a month.
Okay.
So that then gave me 3 months to get in there. First month, renovate the property. Second, third month, rent it out. Get first and last rent, and then start from there. So yeah. So that's something that you work with the person selling it to be like, hey, you want this to work out for me as a person buying it as much as you want it for you.
Yeah.
And that if you set me up horribly, then I will default and we both lose. I can't pay the mortgage because it's too much. So there's almost an energy to make things work in those deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have many of these deals
Mm-hmm.
going on right now, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been able to scale this to and probably get a bunch of more people to do the same thing as you did.
Yeah.
But I also know that you tried to do development. I've seen that you've gone down to Panama or something at some point.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that.
to
Yeah.
yeah, that was early prior to even 2019, and
Oh, okay.
right, that
Mm-hmm.
was in university. So
Mm-hmm.
so this is how, as I was building up to get into real estate in university, I was working with a different partner at the time who wanted to get into developments, and he essentially had family money that he wanted to put into real estate. And so I went and found this deal in Bahamas and thought we
Oh,
could
that was
develop.
Bahamas, not
But
Panama.
yeah,
Okay.
Bahamas, yeah.
Okay.
And essentially that was just when you dream so big, but then when the reality of actually executing it hits you, realizing that the capital you need to execute that project, as I did the financial viability of it, was not going to be financially viable. So, and that's what dissuaded me from development, because you need to have a lot of capital to develop, because it's almost like a scalable or larger version of flipping houses, in that when you flip a property, you need to buy it for low, then you need to invest money into renovations. But in that period from when you bought it and from you when you sell, you're losing money. You're just spending,
Yeah.
spending, spending. So it's a cash management business. So if you don't have enough cash, you can't play with the big boys. And you realize that at the scale we're at in Ontario, because Ontario is fairly developed, you need to have a couple $1 million at least of capital before you get into development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your views on conducting business with your spouse?
Ooh. I think so. That gets down into every business. I think is a
Mhm.
family business because it has the potential to affect your family.
Okay.
So that's the first thing I view as. So as in, if that's the case and you are with your spouse, I think it's more of, um, knowing to like what roles you're both playing and to set up the boundary so that there's still aspects for where you're the business, but you still got a relationship. because sometimes when you're in business with your spouse, that can become a blur, and it's all amalgamated, and then now business seeps into your relationship. Relationship has seeped into the business. So to me, I personally would only advise it if you are of one mind on what the business is, what the core model is, and this is all we're executing. We're not deviating. And so if you're my wife or my spouse, you know, these are your tasks, but within under the realm of the business, right? Yeah. So in real estate, because of how big of an umbrella it is, what I've realized is like you can almost find any job that fits inside that umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. You are a second generation immigrant, probably. Your parents
Or
moved here, or you?
first generation.
Okay, so you're first
They're
generation. Okay.
born and then came.
So the first generation immigrant,
Mm-hmm.
you've seen many other first generation immigrants' relationship with money. Um, so what advice or what would you say about that experience that probably things that you've seen in your community members or people you've been exposed to, and how would their experience with money be enhanced so they can have a better relationship with money and probably become entrepreneurs like you at some point?
So I mean, the baseline of it is mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, we early on, even before into real estate, before even jumping into real estate, my coach walked me through the mindset that you need to develop to even run this business. And so there's typically a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset.
Okay.
So scarcity mindset, also known as poverty mindset, is where things aren't enough. I always got to take to sort of earn, or I got to acquire through taking. The abundance mindset is you flip it, as in I can acquire more by just giving.
Okay.
As in if I just give more and don't worry about what I get in return, in some way, shape, or form, and this is almost like a universal like principle in that you end up being replenished back in some way, shape, or form. So in real estate, it's like you realize that you need to switch your mindset on money and realize that money is infinite. There's actually so much money in the world. I don't like to say I don't have little money. There's too much money. Money is infinite. If you think you can think of $1 billion, there's a number bigger than that. There's $1 trillion, there's a number bigger than that until we get the first zillionaire. You know? So because money is infinite, it's also a construct of the human mind, right? Anything that's infinite is it tends to be a construct. So your perception with money is you should see it as a tool, as in you should have respect for it, just like any tool. As in, you have a hammer, you can use a hammer for a nail, but if you use a hammer on a wall, it's not really the most effective tool.
Yeah.
Right. So in that way, your relationship with money needs to be have an abundance mindset in that there's too much money. So it's more of like, how do I figure out how to put enough value in the world that is equivalent to the income or money that I want to see in my bank account? And then you focus on your skill and craft that generates that value. So number one. Then number two is money is a tool. So as in respect the tool that you're using and understand what the tool is used for. And just like any tool, like money has leverage. And this is the component of money that gets into debt and credit cards and all that. So understand the tool that you're using. So if you're going to get a credit card, what is a credit card? What is the interest? What is the APR? What are my payments? If I'm going to get a line of credit, what's the difference between credit card and a line of credit? If I'm going to get whatever product you're getting, understand the tool you're getting for your finances. And the last thing I would say is in terms of giving. So one of the fundamental principles that is instituted in the Bible is that give 10% of what you make back to your creator God. And it's the only part in the Bible where God says to test me in this. It's the only time God actually tells you, test me, try me, as in, try me and see if I will not at least open up more blessings than what you gave. So there's an aspect of giving back that should also be essential in your relationship with money, to realize that to get that same level of abundance, it's better for you to give with no expectation, right? And hold yourself accountable to essentially who will bless you, which is your creator.
Part of this abundance mindset, that does this speak to remittances? I see a lot of immigrant communities making remittances back to their home countries.
And this is discussed in academic papers, whereas when immigrants come, they get educated, whatever, and they start siphoning money out of the country to send it back. Or sometimes, so in that sense, it's like there's a sense of,
So let's go back there.
yeah.
So is that a bad thing for the economy when you have immigrants, settling and getting these jobs and then siphoning money out of the economy and
Mm.
sending it to their own economy, so their home countries.
It's good for their economy, bad for the economy that's being siphoned. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
that's what, yeah. It's zero sum there in terms of benefit. So, like, as in, and you also get the disproportional advantage of the foreign exchange rate. So, as in, if so now instead of just earning the currency in the state, but it's able to go a little bit further once I exchange it in the currency I'm sending to, right?
Yeah.
So, when it comes to remittances, my key thing is um, just like they tell you on a plane, if you're going down, Mayday, Mayday, and the oxygen mask comes out, they train you this. You put your own mask on first before you put on the mask of your children or whatever.
Or assist anybody else.
Yes. So as in order to first stabilize, you have to have a mentality of assisting yourself first, which as much as it sounds selfish, it's because yeah, it kind of is. You do need to have a sense of holding yourself together because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So when it comes to remittances, it's like most immigrants, it's like because of the pressure of coming here, it feels like you do have to send something back because the pressures back home. People are worried about food. People are worried about living like much more dire situations. So it's like it's like if you're in this economy as an immigrant, it can act like a drag. But at the end of the day, it's how you balance yourself in that you don't want to destabilize yourself on behalf of others because that will set yourself and everyone back. Yeah.
So put on your oxygen mask first. So create a system of making money for yourself first and stabilizing the economy before you start helping out.
Yeah. The average millionaire has 7 streams of income.
Okay. So let's
On
talk about those
average.
streams of income. So what does that mean? Is that 7 streams of income for a millionaire?
So, the first stream of income most people acquire is, like your job. You go exchange your time, you put in an hour of time, and you get a certain dollar out. I put in 1 hour, I get $20 out. It's time for money. That's typically the first stream of income people see, but that's also the one that's most heavily taxed. So that's employment income. From there, the other type of income that most millionaires get is business income. So business income, that is tends to be diversified because there's also like, um, as in there's business income where it can be set up almost as an investment and that you don't need to be operating the business. Then from there you have investment income, right? And so most millionaires just have an actual high skill paying job that is earning 6 figures or more, and then the other streams come from either businesses or investments. So whether that's if you're investing in real estate or you got a stock portfolio, things like that. So you try to get to at least on average 6 or 7 streams reliably that are bringing in
Hmm.
income.
Yeah, and one other thing that I've heard before is that think of it like the legs on your stool. So if you're on a one-legged stool, just one income. If someone knocks off that one leg from the stool, basically you
Completely
go
fall
down,
off.
right?
Yes.
And if
Yeah.
you got a two-legged stool, maybe you can lift one leg up and stuff like that. You get to a three-legged stool, then a three-legged stool is probably better because you can now lift both of your legs up, and you
Yes.
four-legged stool and so on and so forth. By the time you have a seven-legged stool,
You're.
then
Yeah.
if you even if you take off three legs
You
from
still
that
got a
stool, you
table.
still yes you got a table and
Yeah.
you're on stable ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to finish off, so what's your take on? I mean, you're a very busy guy. You're running all these businesses. You give talks. You advise people, and you got a family. That you got
Mhm.
family members and friends that you gotta spend time with.
Mhm.
So how do you sort of maintain this healthy mind and a balance within your work and your life that ensures that you don't burn out or
Yeah.
spend a lot of energy?
Yeah, no, spiritual relationship with God is really the center because it's like everything else builds outside of that, as in relationship with God first and then relationship with others. So it's like, when you have that core center of what is your purpose here, what are the skills or things you're given to utilize to help not only yourself but the people around you, that first of all like comes from how deep you have that connection with your creator first. So from there to get that balance is like you need to be spiritually aligned, spiritually centered. And then from there, it's now the emotional centeredness as well. Because I think life has a tendency of things popping up that can, hey, you're the reactionary. People either can have a tendency to make you emotional, angry, whatever it is. But then there's a certain sense where, as in, if you're attuned with your emotional center and your emotional energy, you balance that in terms of where even if you're at business, you're like, okay, I've expensed this energy, but now this is it for this period of time, and that, there's a time for everything. So then you want to shift and now focus on, okay, if I've done my production, which is income, now I need to focus on my purpose or relationships. And ultimately, even if, you got the spiritual side, emotional side, and then after that, it's health. In that, health is really the true wealth. Forget money, forget all the cars, forget all the houses, forget everything.
Yep.
As in, I have clients who have more money than you can imagine, but they would give it all away for more time. And I'm seeing that happen like as we speak. And so that opens my mind off to realize that you can't take all these things with you to the grave. So if that's the case, then really it comes down to what impact can you make at the present to make the lives of everyone around you a little bit more, happier and better.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of insight here. It's been nice hanging out with you, Steffan. This has been The Couch Connect. See you in another podcast really soon. Take care.